But you know what the card networks have figured out? They have figured out how to protect
Fraud.
consumers. Like, they don't put up with this shit, right? Like, if there is any problem associated with using a card, Visa and MasterCard basically tell issuers, like, figure it out. But under no circumstances are we going to allow consumers to get ripped off using our cards. Like, it is always going to be to the benefit of consumers unless you can demonstrably prove that the consumer is committing fraud. Otherwise, make them whole and let's move on. That's why people trust credit cards and debit cards as a payment rail. That's why people trust Visa and MasterCard. And if you're not going to put those same protections in place, if you're not going to volunteer to assertively and expansively interpret the EFTA as a way to protect your consumers when they're interacting with these tools you're giving them, no one is going to trust you. And that is a problem for you.
Yeah.
So I am super, super frustrated about learning about this case and how Citibank is interpreting it. And while I have some qualms with the way the CFPB is sort of weighing in on this that we can talk about, in general, in spirit, I'm totally with them. What do you think?
I think I'm with you in that I do not think banks arguing that their customers are stupid is going to be like a winning, when it comes to scams and fraud, is going to be a winning long-term strategy. I think an expansiveness of the understanding of like, how do scams happen? How do frauds happen? And then some, like, the other thing I always really struggle with, and people on Twitter seem to disagree with me on this. If a scammer transfers money from one bank to another bank, the second and receiving bank has participated and facilitated in a crime. Like,
totally.
You have received stolen money.
Well, and here's the thing about that I'm so confused about. And it relates to exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, Zelle's a good example of this. Why can't Bank A just go to Bank B and go, hey, give me the money back? Like, just give me the money.
Keep
like,
that
what
person
the hell?
out of your... That person is also... Not only give me that money back, that account is receiving stolen funds. It is probably not just from me.
Yes.
And there should, and the Bank B, I would want to see some very serious, oh my God, here's the stolen money back. We shut down the account. We are pursuing criminal actions against this person because we have all of their transfer information.
We're going to do a forensic analysis of all of the, like, we're going to know all the IP addresses they've used to access this account. We're going to share all that data with all these other banks. Like, this person who's been using these two banks to commit money laundering, just like you're saying, to commit a financial crime, they're getting excluded from our system. And it seems like banks are just not, like, Bank A isn't willing to have that conversation with Bank B, and so the customer gets screwed. It's really weird.
And the other thing too is I also think that the way, when some of these laws were written, the financial system that existed at the time, that's just not going to, like, it's just not really a relevant world anymore. It's not the world that we live in. And so when we're talking about this, like, oh, wires used to be only for companies. Okay, I can believe that. That's not the world we live in today.
It's not.
And so it does make sense to me that someone could interpret this law in a way that makes it more expansive so that wires just become covered. And I would like to see banks kind of actually, and I get that, like, again, these are trade groups, they're not banks.
Yeah.
The banks are behind the trade groups, whatever. So to say that, like, hey, this is actually the world we live in now. I would not die on the hill of narrowly written regulation from the 80s. I didn't imagine this. Like, what's the, when we think about, like, reputation risk, when we think about financial risk, like, is that really going to be your legal argument that this really old time law that didn't even include certain types of payment types because they didn't exist at the time? Like, or are we really thinking, like, what is the spirit of this law? What is it trying to do? What behavior is it trying to protect and address? And if we were going to comply, and this comes up in soccer refereeing a lot, like, what's the letter of the law saying? What's the spirit of the law? What is the law actually trying to achieve?
Yes.
And so to say, what is the spirit of these laws and how would we comply with what the spirit of the law is? If this law is going to be written today and cover this, what would it mean for us? It means probably making that customer whole, potentially. And that should be on the table. And then to say, hey, that really sucks that customer, how did that person even get all of their money stolen? How did that person enter our system? How did our checks fail? What would it mean if we wanted to stamp out this behavior rather than if we were like, hey, sorry, we just banked a dumb customer and they just gave their credentials away, and then we did nothing about it because they gave their credentials away, and who are we to stop them from giving their credentials away?
Well, and here's the other thing is, so Citibank might sort of say in this hypothetical argument, well, we're not in the business of being overly paternalistic about how our customers use our different services, blah, 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 blah. Here's the thing. If Citibank cared about its customers, what they would do is you would be signing up for a checking account in the savings account at Citibank. And during the onboarding process, they would run through a list of features that they have for the account. And they would go, hey, so which of these features would you like to enable? And which of these features would you like to disable as we're onboarding this account and create this account for you? And wire transfers will be one of the features. And they would go, hey, so just so you know, when you click this button and you enable wire transfers, if for whatever reason a transfer is made from this account using this functionality that you're clicking a button and opting in and enabling, we are not going to cover any fraudulent transactions that go out via wire transfers because of EFTA, blah, 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 blah. Do you want to enable this? And if someone clicks affirmatively yes and says, I want to enable this and I fully understand the risks of what you're telling me, then it's fine. Then it's like, okay, you warned the customer, you gave them an explicit notice that this was going to happen. That's a different kettle of fish. I can guarantee you that Citibank doesn't do that. What they do is you sign up for a checking account. It's low friction. They don't want to throw a bunch of stuff in your way. Yeah, come on in. All the features are enabled. It's going to be great. We have this really powerful account. They just give you all these tools and they don't warn you that some of these tools are a little bit more dangerous than others, A. And B, if you hurt yourself with one of these dangerous tools, we won't help you. Like if you don't give customers the heads up on that in advance, and then you exploit the loophole to not help them on the back end when the thing goes wrong, that's on you.